The intense magnetism of God's love for you is irresistible. August 23, 2014. We are surging forwards towards the moment of humanity's awakening from the dream or nightmare in which it has seemingly been ensnared for eons. It is difficult for you to imagine how very close that wondrous moment is. You have had many disappointments and false dawns as you have waited longingly and hopefully for this promised event, and so you are wary of forecasts and prognostications such as this one. Here in the spiritual realms, part of our job is to encourage you to keep holding your divine light on high, because that is your task and it ensures that the awakening happens. And one way we do this is to offer you uplifting guidance about its proximity. And it truly is very near. All that you have to do is to continue holding on high, the light of love from which you were created and in which you have your eternal existence. Separation from it, from your divine source, is not possible, because to be separate you have to remove yourselves from the proximity of that from which you wish to be separated, and there is nowhere else, so your experiences of separation, aloneness, or abandonment are utterly illusory. What is illusory is unreal. It is an hallucinatory state that you invented to pretend that separation was real, and you did your utmost to make it appear real by filling it with experiences that were totally alien to reality: fear, pain, suffering, deceit, and betrayal, all surreal inventions that were in opposition to love, to which, as you well know, there is no possible opposite. And you have had enough of unreality. You, humanity, have collectively decided to release your hold on your belief in this disquieting environment that has caused you so much fear, pain, and confusion, and return to your true and natural state at one with your ever-loving source. To awaken is to wake from this long-endured dream of poverty, scarcity, danger, and solitariness into the ecstasy and joy of your eternal home. The time for disturbing and painful games has passed. The last remnants of those games are occurring as I talk to you. Do not attempt to understand them, they are incomprehensible, just let them go, along with all the beliefs and attitudes that sustain them. Your way home is through your hearts, not through logic or reason, which are important instruments for use only in the illusion where there is constant confusion and misunderstanding and an apparent urgent need to make clear. In reality all is clear, utterly clear. All is known, thus making reason and logic meaningless tools that have no purpose, as you will discover to your delight and amazement. When your awakening occurs, as it will very shortly, a great clarity will fill your minds as a full understanding of your human life's purpose is revealed to you, and a sense of unconditional acceptance and love will embrace and delight you. Your long-held hopes and dreams will be mightily and eternally delivered on a far grander scale than you can possibly imagine, as all your fears and anxieties dissolve into nothingness. You will be home, and you will recognize and remember how you belong here as you are welcomed into the wonder of these heavenly realms. We, too, will be filled with joy and wonder as we observe you observing the marvels that surround you, and seeing your realization that it truly matters not how long you have spent in the illusion, because you were at all times homewards bound, and because your return was inevitable. Your arrival will totally resolve and remove any remaining traces of the time you spent apparently lost, confused, and seemingly alone and so often suffering in that strange and often threatening environment. Your arrival is excitedly anticipated here because we can see that it is indeed absolutely inevitable. To you, still seemingly endlessly anchored in the illusion, the prospect of awakening into reality is something for which you yearn. And that intense desire is one of the thoughts, one of the powerful intentions that is impelling you forwards on your journey back to your source. The, as you might describe it, intense magnetism of God's love for you is irresistible. It is drawing you onwards resolutely, and with purposeful and unwavering determination. The illusion is an egoic construct, and the ego's intent is separation, so that you are endlessly enslaved in its unreal world of fear, distrust, betrayal, and confusion where it rules supreme. But of course the ego is unreal. It is terrified that you will realize this, and therefore also realize that it is an incredibly divisive aspect of yourselves that you can instantly discard and then lovingly reintegrate into your whole selves where it truly belongs. The ego is part of the illusion, But it is a part that you invented from within yourselves because you seemingly needed it to protect you from all the dangers and threats with which the illusory environment surrounded you. Indeed, it has been useful to you as a helpmate in the physical tasks with which you needed to deal as a human. Unfortunately, it has always assumed that you are under attack or about to be under attack, and so its motives have been defensive and mistrustful, of you, and of humanity at large. Remember, the ego is a collective entity that expresses the general beliefs and concerns of humanity, while at the same time doing its best to convince each individual that this general perception is absolutely valid. It has succeeded, and as a result you have wars on poverty, wars on drugs, wars on drunk driving, wars on illiteracy, wars on crime, wars on terrorism, on and on. Nothing but wars. And of course they all seem perfectly valid to the ego-driven world of the illusion. In the last 20 years or so, however, the applicability of the term war on has been increasingly questioned, and in many cases discarded as utterly inappropriate. That is a sign that the ego is losing its grip, that humanity is uncovering its true nature, love, and is beginning to respond to the problems and issues that disturb you and alienate you one from another by listening to the differing perceptions that until very recently served only to drive you apart and into opposing warring factions. The insanity of that approach to problems is at last very clear as you observe the intense suffering that it has caused over the eons. Humanity is growing up and letting go of its ego-driven behaviors and attitudes that may be appropriate in 3-year-olds as they learn to cope with the insanity of the illusion in which they find themselves, and have to engage with others at the same level of intellectual development. But, after a few bruising encounters, anyone with any sense, any true awareness, realizes that war is most definitely not the answer to any disagreement whatsoever, whether as little children in preschool relationships, or as fully grown adults in nation-to-nation relationships. War does not work. It never has, and finally that is being accepted as a scientifically proven fact, even though the scientists in the arms industries and the politicians that support them might choose to disagree. However, their influence is fading very rapidly. People are asking with grave concern why it is that in a world where unnecessary poverty is endemic, nations are spending inordinate amounts of money on weapons. And of course the answer to that is because those who would engage in war and in the manufacture of armaments are attempting to place themselves above humanity, and protect their favored and elitist positions by the use of police and military forces that are answerable only to them. Well, the time for those kinds of shenanigans is over. Those who would control and suppress the mass of humanity have lost control. Humanity has turned to love, is opening its collective heart, to engage once more with its true nature, and so the moment for your inevitable awakening draws ever closer. Your loving brother, Jesus. Channeled by John Smallman. johnsmallman2.wordpress.com